Safety has two prongs. In this episode, I'm going to address the question, what criteria should I use in determining a safe place to invest money? Safety is something we all want. I'm going to show you two criteria, two prongs when we consider safe places to invest money. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've actually been a financial strategist, a retirement planning specialist now for more than 48 years. And during that period, I've helped thousands of people accumulate their money for long-term goals, such as retirement. And I want to make sure that wherever they set aside serious cash, this is money they don't want to jeopardize, they don't want to lose, and they want to make sure that they have liquidity, safety, predictable rates of return, and then I prefer tax-free. So this is what I call the laser test. In fact, my most recent book that I want to gift you at the end of this episode is called The Laser Fund, because I have one of my favorite vehicles passes liquidity, safety, rate of return test with flying colors, and it just happens to be totally tax-free. It knocks the socks off of traditional accounts like IRAs or 401ks invested in the market. But let's talk about this two-prong approach to safety. In this book, I'm talking about what constitutes a liquid investment, the ability to access your money when you need it. And I have another episode on this very channel that talks about the importance of liquidity. That's number one. But number two is safety. Now, generally, when I talk about safety, some people think, well, safety of the institution. Okay, that's one prong. So I prefer to have my serious cash in the safest institutions. And like I teach in my various publications, my books, and on this very channel, that I choose to put a lot of my serious cash into a diversified portfolio of insurance contracts with the insurance industry. Why? Because the legal reserve insurance industry is not only the backbone of America, but the backbone of the world. This is where many governments go to for help when they are hard up for money, or they lack liquidity, or banks and credit unions put their money, which is actually our money, when we deposit it into a savings or a checking account. So let me go into the safety of the institution and then the other prong of safety. Now, I mentioned legal reserve insurance company. That simply means that the legal reserve insurance industry, the companies that have those legal reserve requirements have to keep an amount of money on hand, liquid and safe in the event of a run on the institution, a collapse in the country. And so this is where a lot of governments will go to for help when they get into trouble, because some of these insurance companies manage as much money as the IRS collects in an entire year in America. One company where I put my money manages about $3.5 trillion, and that's as much as the IRS collects in taxes in an entire year. They're huge. You want to have money in an institution that has weathered some of the worst times in American history. So many times I'll talk about the Great Depression, where sometimes real estate dropped 80% in value. Banks closed, 40% never reopened again. Guess who came through the Great Depression with flying colors? The legal reserve insurance industry. They were crediting 2.5%, 3.5%, which is pretty good right now, where banks are only crediting about 1% as of the recording of this episode. But see, there wasn't one single legal reserve insurance company that went under in the Great Depression. Then I often refer to 2008. We came so close in America to a total financial collapse. In fact, David Walker, who is the Comptroller General of the General Accountability Office of the United States, he resigned under the Obama administration because he was not allowed to tell the public the truth of how much serious trouble we were in. And so he talked about this was very serious. 400 banks went under. 900 more in 2008 were on the watch list, on the brink of going under. And that's when the federal government asked the 5 major banks in America to disclose where they had their tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety. Guess where they had it? In the legal reserve insurance industry. And the average insurance company where I have my money, they're rated AA or AAA. Many banks and credit unions are only rated BBB. The difference is about 6 notches higher in safety. So banks and credit unions take your money, our money, we deposit into them, and they turn around and increase the safety by 6 notches higher by putting it into legal reserve insurance companies. Hello? Are you getting an epiphany? You can bypass the middleman. But also they increase the rate of return, and that's the third key element of a prudent investment. We'll talk about that in another episode. But they borrow our money and pay us 1%. They turn around and make 5 times that, or 5%. On every million, they pay $10,000 a year in interest, and they make $50,000 by putting that money in insurance companies. Let's come back to the safety. We're talking about safety of the institution. So you can bypass the middleman, put your money into the legal reserve insurance industry, which in my estimation is probably the last domino that would fall if this country got into super trouble. In other words, I would have so much notice, the banks would be failing, real estate would be plummeting, all kinds of things would be happening. I could go grab my money. It would be very liquid because it's also the most liquid place where I put my serious cash. Liquidity is the number one key element. Now, if things were that bad, I ask myself, so if I had my money, where would I put it? You better be able to grow carrots in your backyard, as I say, because people think, well, gold or silver. You can't eat the gold or silver. If things are really that bad, money will be worthless. But I want my serious cash in the last domino that would fall, so that if we have another 2008, which we will have, I want my money liquid and safe, not in these middlemen, in the banks and the credit unions. Does that make sense? Okay. What is the second prong of safety? Safety of your principal. A lot of times people don't think about this, which means whatever I set aside, if I invest $100,000, $500,000, $500 a month, that's my principal. Okay, that's my basis. I want to protect that from loss. Most financial planners don't know how to do that. They put your money in the market and they go, you're going to have some wins and you're going to have some losses. No, I want to protect myself so I don't lose when the market goes down, but I make money when the market goes up. And I use a strategy where my money is not at risk in the market. It's safely tucked in an insurance company. It may be earning 5%. Every million that I accumulate, okay, let's just use that as an example. You can extrapolate from this example here, whether you have 10,000, 100,000, a million, or 10 million. But if I have $1 million and the insurance company is crediting me 5% on their general account portfolio, where they have mortgages on skyscrapers and shopping malls, and they buy AAA and AA bonds and what have you, I can settle for 4 or 5%. 5% on $1 million would be 50,000. But anytime I feel bullish about America, my million has to stay safe in the insurance company earning 4, or let's say 5. I can relinquish the 5%, the 50,000, and I let them use that however they want to have the wherewithal to pay me whatever index I link my returns to. These insurance companies are savvy. They offer sometimes 10 or 15 indices like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the Barclays U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. You can learn about these on this very channel. What this means is if I feel bullish about America, the insurance company takes that 5% or 50,000 in this example, and they buy upside options in whatever index or indices I chose, the S&P 500. If the market goes up, the 50,000 doubles to 100 or triples to 150,000, they can pay me 10 or 15%. But if I guess wrong and the economy tanks or crashes, I don't lose 10, 20, 30, 40% like people did in 2008. None of our clients lost a dime due to that crash in 2008. In fact, they locked in gains of 16% and even 25% the first 90 days of 2009 because their money was not in the market. The options may have expired worthless, but their million was still safe. That is safety of principle. But let's take 2017. Many of our clients locked in gains of 16% and 25%. So I had a client with $1 million at the beginning of 2017. At the end of 2017, he got credited 25%. He made $250,000. He had $1,250,000. Let's say the next year, 2018, the market dropped 40%. Now it didn't. It was ho-hum. It didn't make any money, but it didn't really lose any. But let's say it lost 40% like 2008, 10 years earlier. If you had your money in the market, you would have lost 40% of your $1,250,000. When you have it in an indexed insurance contract, the options expire worthless. You still kept your $1,250,000 because your principal was protected. Any year you make money, that becomes newly protected principal. When you understand this concept, you will not lose in future years the money you made in previous years. This is called locking in your gains and resetting. Now, I don't have time in this video to go into detail here, but if this is intriguing you, you need to learn more. So I would suggest, if you're already thinking of somebody who ought to watch this episode, be sure and share. Click like, but I want you to subscribe, because this is about you and your brighter future. And when you subscribe to the channel, click on the little bell, and you'll be notified every time I post a new educational video, which I do almost on a daily basis. And stay with me here just another few moments, because I want to gift you a copy of my most recent best-selling book called The Laser Fund, and you'll understand the importance of safety from both prongs that I've been talking about. So let me connect the dots for you right now, and I'll show you how you can claim your free copy of my book. So in this episode, we're actually addressing the second key element of a prudent investment. Number one was liquidity, the ability to access your money when you need it. Number two is safety. A lot of people get these in reverse order and so forth. Number three is rate of return. A lot of people put that number one. Now, we've talked about two prongs with safety. Safety of the institution. I prefer to put my serious cash in the last domino that would fall if we had a total financial collapse in this country. I want it in a safe institution that's ranked usually 5 or 6 notches higher in safety than banks and credit unions and the like. But safety of principal is the other prong. Whatever I set aside, I want to protect from losing money on that. But any year that I make money, I want to lock in that gain and reset so that I am protecting the principal, resetting every year. I don't want to lose in future years money I made in previous years, because I am protecting the new principal balance every single year. What I just described, you wouldn't believe how many financial advisors don't know how to do that. How can you learn to do this? Well, I would recommend your first step is to claim your free copy of this 300-page book. I'm big into education. This is my 11th book, and it will empower you on how to diversify and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement. It shows you how to reposition your serious cash and choose investments on a scale of 1 to 10 that score high in liquidity. Safety is the second bar, rate of return, and then tax benefits. And you'll see out of a possible 40 points why my favorite vehicle, the Laser Fund, knocks the socks off of where most Americans have their money, which usually only score about 18 to 22 out of 40 points. Wouldn't you rather have your money where it scores more like 35 out of 40? That's why I call it the Laser Fund, liquid assets safely earning returns. So go to laserfund.com, click on the link below, contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that, and I'll fire out a hard copy to you. This is flying off of our warehouse shelves. I don't want you to miss out. But there's also options there to listen and learn and watch and learn. There's even an 18-hour master class where you can do a deep dive where my two sons and I teach all of these concepts chapter by chapter, deeper than even reading the book. So take this first step to your brighter future to maintain liquidity, safety, and also predictable rates of return. Watch that episode next to understand how to create predictable rates of return tax-free.